Greetings to everyone in the Church Lads and Church Girls Brigade from me, Bishop Peter, on the Isle of Man, as the Bishop Visitor to the Brigade, and therefore as your link, your representative, if you like, to the wider Church of England. So I greet you all most warmly this Holy Week and Easter. In one sense, I'm disappointed that I'm doing this because I would rather be with you, but that is not possible. And so, on the other hand, I am very pleased just to have this opportunity to spend a couple of minutes talking to you about Holy Week and Easter. It was this time last year, as we know, that the United Kingdom went into its first lockdown, and also really the Isle of Man as well. And we're now on our third lockdown. So for me, for the second Easter running, church will be online. Church will be virtual rather than in our church buildings. And that too is a cause of sadness, but perhaps it leads me to reflect on how all the themes of the past year are present in the story of Holy Week. And to go through Holy Week listening to the scriptures, saying our prayers and following the story through from Palm Sunday, the entrance into Jerusalem, through to Easter Day and the resurrection, is still a challenging as well as a wonderful experience. Challenging because it takes us through all human emotions, some of them really quite disturbing. It's a story about fear, a story about betrayal, a story about disappointment, a story about sadness, and a story about grief. All of those things are present in the story of Holy Week. But first and foremost, it is a story of joy, because those things lead through to the joy of the resurrection that we celebrate on Easter Day. We celebrate on that day the most wonderful event of all human history, perhaps the event that is the very purpose of human history, Christ rising again from death, and in doing so, to show to us that in the love of God there is nothing that can separate us from him, either in life or even in death. And so as I think on these things, I'm reminded that God calls us to be faithful and to hold before us that hope in the risen Christ, that joy in the risen Christ. This past year will have been for you, as for me, a time of frustration, a time of sadness in many cases, and a time when we've just not been able to do those things we'd like to. But we know that we will come through this. We already see signs, for example, of turning the corner. And in fact, I received my vaccine on Monday of Holy Week, which perhaps is one of the most appropriate days of all. But that reminds me that we are coming through this, and we are looking towards the time when we can again meet with one another, be with one another, share with one another in gladness and in joy. And until then, I wish you a blessed Holy Week and a joyful Easter. And I'm reminded that God, who has created life, God who has created and redeemed all life, God who sustains us in all things, will bring us through this to gladness and joy, just as at the last he will bring us through death to eternal life. All God asks of us is that we remain faithful. My prayers and my love for you this Holy Week and this Easter.